Hello, hello. Welcome to Beyond ADHD, a physician's perspective. I am Dr. Deanna Marmarosh. I'm a family medicine physician practicing in rural Texas. I used to be hindered by my ADHD, but I now see it as a gift that helps me show up as the person I was always meant to be, both in my work and in my personal life. In the past 2 years, I've come to realize that unlearning some of my beliefs and some of my habits were just as important as learning the new set of skills.
I am so excited today. I have an amazing friend here, and I can't wait to hear all her story in the full totality or whatever she feels like sharing. I have Dr. Danielle Milano.
Malano.
Milano. She tried to help me earlier, but
It's okay.
we forget. Milano. And she is a full-time family medicine physician, and of course she's an amazing wife and a mother, and she is she's a coach. I'm gonna mispronounce, but she cooks amazing food. Okay, culinary coach. There it is. And so anyways, I want to hear about her story, and she's gonna walk us through how she found out she had ADHD.
Okay. Thank you. It is so exciting to be here. And I'm just such a big fan of yours. I'm really honored to be able to share this space with you. Thank you so much. So, I, at the ripe old age of 43 years old, just found out I have ADHD. And it was a long time coming. And I never really knew that this is what it was. But I always knew I felt like something was wrong with me. I was bright. I got straight A's in grade school. I had a very structured, childhood. My parents were super strict. All I was allowed to do was, homework, and that was it. And then when I got into college and was pre-med, it got more stressful, and I found myself just, falling asleep studying or procrastinating or, cramming the night before, and, was by the grace of God was able to get into medical school. And I went from California to Chicago, far away from home. And being away, again, that was just another big struggle for me. I thought everyone else was smarter than I was. And I didn't feel like I belonged. And I was so afraid of asking for help because then everyone would figure out that I don't belong there. But again, because of that fear, I decided I would just try harder, study harder, work harder, you know, and, it got me to where I wanted to be. I landed my first choice for my family medicine residency. And then I became a lowly intern all over again, just starting over in a new place in California, back at home. And again, I was struggling a lot. Um, so I, again, studied harder, worked harder, all at a cost, right? Of just this feeling that I had in my chest and in my brain and like tingling all over my body, like constantly in order to succeed and perform and, you know, get, what I needed to get done and take good care of my patients. So, I continued to perform like I thought at like a high level. And when I got married and had kids, we threw in another human being and then two other additional human beings into the mix where, my tools that I had in place to keep me in line were just thrown out the window.
I know the feeling.
I know, right? It's not just me anymore. So I remember getting into an argument with my husband at some point. This was before we had kids. I don't know. It was something about something silly. Maybe, things weren't in place or things were a mess. And I totally married my opposite. I'm type A, he's type B, super relaxed and chill. And I was just getting so upset. And then at one point he was like, D, you didn't marry you. And then I was like, oh, light bulb, you're right. I did not marry me. And if I did, I probably wouldn't work out because I need to find someone that balances me. And thank goodness that both of my boys have two loving parents who show their love in very different ways, and they can get the best of both. And so, my boys started school, and my oldest one was doing great. He was getting straight A's. I was like, wow, this is great. Let's, have another one, And so kid number 2 came along. Oh my goodness, a little bit different, right? They're two completely different human beings. And I know we're not supposed to compare, but we still do.
Yeah.
Right. And I noticed, in TK and in kinder, the teachers would mention things that he would, have these outbursts or be more active. I definitely thought he was more of an extrovert than my oldest one. And, they're different. They're kids, So, but in the back of my head, I was like, okay, should I be worried? When should I be worried about, possibility of ADHD? And I reached out to the teachers starting in first grade when she had sent an email. This was like probably post pandemic. So I knew there was going to be a transition coming back into school in person. So when I put the feelers out about, hey, should I get my kid evaluated? She's like, no, let's wait. Let's, put these processes in place to help him focus. And I said, okay, things went well for a while and then they didn't. So it would be this back and forth. And then finally, after multiple back and forth, it was almost towards the end of the year that I said, hey, should I get him evaluated? Just say the word, and I'm all in. I'm all for, giving him all the opportunities to succeed. No answer. And so I just took it upon myself, got a hold of our pediatrician, and she got the evaluation. And of course, there's a waiting process. And we went through that process. We got the appointment and we filled out some paperwork. The teacher filled out some paperwork. And then we finally had the meeting with the behavioral pediatrician. And during that interview, I was with Johnny, and they have to take the history, right, of both of the parents and the history of the child. And in gathering my personal history, mid-sentence, I was like, do you think I should get evaluated? And he's like, yes, without hesitation. Yes, you should. And he said, oftentimes we diagnose ADHD late, especially in women, because they're more sometimes of the inattentive type. But when you're diagnosed late, maybe in adulthood, it's often because of a couple of reasons. Number one, if you're very bright, that could mask it.
Yep.
Or number two, you had a lot of structure in place in childhood that again masked the ADHD. And he said, honestly, I think you had the ADHD spanked out of you, because that was the form of discipline that I got from, my dad. Another light bulb went off. And so I was like, okay, if I am going to give my son the best chances to be successful in school and in his relationships and in life, like, why don't I do the same for me, no matter how late, right?
Right.
I think at some point in our relationship, my husband said, why don't you just, go on medication for like depression or anxiety or something? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I honestly, I don't necessarily think I'm depressed. Maybe like there's definitely an element of anxiety there, but I want to know. I want to know if this is plain old, anxiety, or is this anxiety stemming from something else? And if it is, I want to make sure that I'm treating the right thing, or I'm addressing the right thing. So, sorry, my alarm's going off. So I called my primary doctor, and I got an intake visit with one of the therapists from our psychiatry department. We did like a preliminary intake, and then she sent me paperwork. And again, because of the pandemic, it was hard to do in-person evaluations. And so she sent me like a 4-page thing to fill out. I had to have my husband fill it out. And then I had to find a friend who knew me from when I was in first grade to also fill it out, wait for them to turn all of that in, submit all of that paperwork, and then wait for someone to eventually review those and then get back to me. They got back to me and they told me that my test was negative. And
what?
I kind of knew that coming on, because again, I feel like I function at a certain level. And I think a lot of women diagnosed late in ADHD have this issue too. They function at a certain level that no one else sees the struggle that they feel inside. So when she told me that my initial testing was negative, she offered me an option to do the objective testing with the psychologist. And I said, yes, of course, absolutely. So I made that appointment. I went in, I saw the psychologist. I had to she conducted a computer test, which was 14 minutes. I forgot the name of it, but it was like the longest 14 minutes of my life. You had to stare at a computer screen and press the space bar every time you saw a letter pop up on the screen, except for the letter X. And so I was trying to focus and concentrate. It would go at different speeds, and then there would be a lull, and then it would speed up again. And I was just, it was hard. So at the end of the test, she reviewed it, she scored it, and she said, "Congratulations on getting this far with undiagnosed ADHD." I almost burst into tears. Like, it was just so validating. So much of my life made so much more sense. I like wanted to tell everybody in the world,
Yeah.
this is why I am me. Like, people are like, "Oh my gosh, you do all the cooking. You're a doctor. You're a mom. Like, you're so fit. You do all the exercise. You make yummy things and dinner and treats and all the things." They're like, "How do you do it?" I'm like, "I don't know. I love doing all the things, And I do love doing all the things, but sometimes that comes at a cost, and no one sees that, I feel like. And I think, it's finally time for people to know that no matter how well you think somebody is doing, you never know the struggle that they may be going through. So
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point that's why I'm pausing you right there, because just like you said, nobody knows at what cost, because you pointed out so many different nuggets there of the fact that you're going to work your ass off for something that you feel aligns with you, whether it's to become a doctor, whether it's to be a good mom, whether it's whatever it is that fuels you, you're going to pour your soul into it. And we don't want to know other people that were kind of struggling, so we're kind of gonna mask. Like I would stay up late to do some charting for me, like 20-30 hours. I didn't want nobody to know how hard I was working, because I thought it was what I needed to do to be able to have the privilege to do that, right? And like you said, the question you or the comment stuff, like, they're gonna find out I don't belong here. Like, they're gonna find out, and so you have that little fear of them finding out. Even though, of course, you belong in the room. You were always meant to be there. But your brain, because you're so multi-passionate, it looks like a hot mess to other people, but it makes total sense to you. And like you said, like, maybe those people didn't realize you just magically got shit done. They didn't realize that it took you 10 times as much. Like, maybe it took you 2 hours to do that project, and your friend took her 5 minutes, and you didn't think anything of it because you both turned in the project. So It wasn't a big deal. And so that's so good that you decided to get the next thing. Even though they told you, no, this is negative, you're like, well, is there any other things to find out, right? Like, to get the next step, because most of us stop there. We're like, no, they already said that's it, right? But you knew inside that you were doing these things. And yeah, exactly. Like they said, congratulations, you got this far. Now let's get better systems in place, because that's tiring as fuck.
yeah, it's tiring. I'm tired. Can I still be like me? Can I still be my amazing self that loves to do all of the things, and like feel less of that internal angst that just tortures me sometimes? And I think, people don't get that. When I was sharing with some of my colleagues, like, yeah, I'm getting evaluated, we're going to see what happens. And they're like, you don't need medication. Like, look at you. You're like, you finish all your charts on time. You don't do any of your charts at home. You teach other people how to do their charts. Like, you exercise during lunch. Like, you're not doing your charts. You don't need it, is what, you don't need.
You, like, because you're exercising, that's why you're getting your shit done.
Yes, right. That's like, it's one of my outlets to get out my, nervous energy, so that I can, regroup and get back on it, and, do the thing, get my stuff done.
And you might have been motivating yourself by telling yourself, do it right, otherwise they're going to find out. So it was not a healthy way that you were doing it. per se. And like you said, your anxiety was through the roof and you were trying to mask it, right?
Absolutely.
So, don't get me wrong, I feel amazing after I work out. But, there's more than just one reason people exercise, right? And so, when you hear from others, especially your peers or your family or your colleagues or your friends that, oh, you don't need help, that's just not a helpful comment. So, what I would say to people who hear from others that may share with them that they're struggling or they have X, Y, or Z diagnosis, it's not always necessarily helpful for you to say, oh, but you look great. Oh, but you look fine. Oh, but you don't need help, because it dismisses their suffering.
Yeah. And that's, I call it the invisible disability, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to say that it's disabling, because now, I mean, it can be. It can get us into trouble, of course,
For sure.
but it can also be a superpower. But
Yes.
in order for it to become a superpower, you have to first own the diagnosis and then learn about it and be curious. But in order for all that to happen, you need to feel confident enough in yourself to know that you're worth the investment, whether it means medication or coaching or therapy or
all of
exercise or all of the above, right? And like you said, like, we would never tell a diabetic, you don't need insulin. I mean, your A1C is at 12, but you don't need that. Like, why can't you just get over it, right? Like,
why could you?
right? So it's like the invisible disability, because nobody can see how hard you're struggling. They don't see a broken leg there. They don't see a broken nose that is bleeding. They don't, and again, like you said, some of those words can be almost traumatic to us, right? Because they're not validating how you're feeling. And they're almost making you feel like whatever you're feeling, you shouldn't be feeling that, because you look great. You look amazing. Like, what else do you need? Like,
Exactly. Like, I don't deserve help, And I try to instill that in my son too, because when he was initially diagnosed with, I thought honestly that he was going to get like a soft diagnosis, maybe, if that. And then when the physician said, okay, so he's got severe combined ADHD, and then with a little bit of anxiety, I'm like, what? I wasn't expecting that. And at such a young age, when he saw that, the ADHD was already, causing some anxiety in him, I really wanted to make sure to, address that. And so I dove deep, like you had recommended. Thank you so much for recommending ADHD 2.0. I read it on Audible on all of my commutes, finished it. And then, I let Johnny know that this is your superpower. He's so creative. He's such an artist. He has so much fun. He's super popular at school. Everyone loves him. He's so funny. And I remind him that, he's got like what Dr. Hallowell describes as a Ferrari motor for a brain with bicycle brakes. And he really took to that. And now all of a sudden he's reading these books, Dog Man, and it's kind of a comic style book. And I had no idea that it's also the same author that wrote Captain Underpants, who apparently has, I think, ADHD and dyslexia. So they really love reading that. And I'm just really grateful that they have those resources and can see. And now Johnny's just enjoying reading so much more. His grades are improving now that he's getting the treatment and services that he needs.
Yeah. And like, what an amazing thing that it was that you were open to finding a better way for your son, right? And in doing that, like you said, you deserve the same thing, because hopefully you're like my grandma. I keep saying this line over and over, who lives to be 93. One of them was, the other one was 90. So like, you still have like 50 years of your life going forward, which could be, what if that could be like the next best phase? Like, you thought that whatever you had done was amazing, but like, you had no idea, right? Like, and so yeah, so that's so cool that you were able to use that and model and support him and continue to advocate for him, because like you said, you kept asking the teachers over and over, like, hey, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And that's the thing with ADHD, right? That it's not just like at school. It's at school and at the playground and at home and at the birthday party, and it's everywhere, right? And so you just got to make sure that you're supporting your kids the best that you can and providing them the resources the best that you can. And of course, when you look back, like, I don't know how, if you can tell your family who has ADHD, but
oh yeah,
because like we didn't know, I thought that was just normal because everybody like was doing the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now tell me about this like coaching thing that you're doing. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, so when I was deciding at some point in my life, like, I think it was right around the pandemic in March-ish 2020, I decided, okay, am I going to go to therapy, or am I going to try this life coaching that I heard about online? And I ended up deciding to go with life coaching, and that's where I got connected with so many other like-minded women, including yourself, who were going through a lot of the same things I was going through, and I had no idea. I just felt so alone before I joined Empowering Women Physicians, and seeing other women physicians share their stories and then thrive after whatever it is that they were going through, and continue to change and progress and dream and improve, and then struggle still. It was just so inspiring. And I think that really fueled, another passion in me. Like, I already enjoyed cooking, and I already shared some of this stuff on the internet on my Instagram account. I had this, I think I said out loud on one of the groups, like, I want to have a cooking show. And somebody told me, like, you already have a cooking show. It just happens to live on Instagram. I- And the way that was framed, borrowing that thought and looking at it that way, I'm like, you're right. I do have a cooking show and it lives on Instagram. And so because I thought that, instead of, oh, I just have this little thing on Instagram, I started posting more. I started getting more connections. And then I was reached out to by Dr. Manasa Mantravadi, who is the creator of Ahimsa, the world's first colorful stainless steel tableware for kids. And I was their first physician ambassador, and I made some reels for them. We are continuing in collaboration. I was a representative for them at the AAP conference in Anaheim last month. It was so much fun. And so not only did I connect with her, because I started posting more, and I was reached out to also by Cutco, the knives that I love and use almost, every day. And I'm, kind of like an ambassador for them as well. And just making all of these connections is so much fun. And, the next step is, to work on building a website. And I was trying to decide, okay, should I get certified in lifestyle medicine, or should I get certified in culinary medicine? And, those things definitely are so valuable, but I was just getting lost in where I should go or what I should do. And then I ended up choosing culinary coaching because it was more accessible for me at the time. And I went through that process and that program, and I finished literally just this year. And now I can say I'm a culinary coach, and include that when I share all of the delicious things that I share online, whether it's on Instagram or on my future website, or maybe in my future courses.
That's so amazing, right? Like when you start to borrow other people's thoughts, like you were already a chef and you were already having your show and you didn't even realize that, right? But it's so, again, it goes back to our human connections and understanding that words matter and thoughts matter and feelings matter. And even though we don't want to believe that, I mean, they do. And realizing that when you're in alignment, like when you knew that this is what fuel you, like you were able to take in, continue those steps that then opened up the opportunity for bigger things, for you to be able to inspire and help not just other physicians, everybody else on Instagram. Like, how amazing is that? Yeah, and so what is your favorite things of like cooking or teaching people? Like, what is your favorite things you like to do?
Yeah, so one of the best things that I enjoy sharing, that I learned in my culinary coach courses, was something that I already did, but just didn't necessarily have a name for, is batch cooking. And batch cooking is a way to, make a big portion of something that you will either use either the next day or save and, freeze for later on, so that it will save you time the next time, that dish comes around. And so I show examples of that on Instagram. And then a lot of other things that I share is, I definitely have a sweet tooth. I'm not going to lie. But because I'm also really mindful about what I put into my body, I went about trying to find different ways to modify and have substitutes for different things that I would put in my treats or my pastries, or, in desserts, substituting maybe coconut sugar or applesauce for oil, and or just cutting the sugar in half. Like, you can just start with cutting the sugar either by 25%, 60%, 50%, whatever it is. Honestly, you will not know the difference. It's still going to be delicious, it's still going to be sweet. And then the more you do that, the more your taste buds will change, and then recognize how delicious food already is without all of the other processed stuff. And you can just continue on in your journey of being as healthy as you want to be in terms of your own particular goals. I don't like, my Instagram is not like a weight loss um, feed, or a, or an obesity feed or anything like that. It's more of a wellness. Like, this is what you can do. These are some options that you can take in order to take that one step to be a healthier you.
Yeah, so you're just facilitating the process for us to be mindful and still have the cake and eat it too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell me, what ADHD hacks have you been able to like lean into, or what have you noticed that now that you implemented some of these, you're like, oh, thank God.
Mm-hmm. So for me, and I remember this, going back into residency, I'm a list person. If it's not front and center in front of my face, I'm not going to see it. So I notice that if I make a list on paper, it works better than if it's a list on my phone, because if it's a list on my phone that I get a pop-up about, I'll just swipe it away. Swipe it away. For most things. I mean, there are some things that I do put like a big exclamation point red mark on that do live on my phone, but day to day, if I make a list on a piece of paper in front of my face, when I wake up in the morning, before I do any of the things, I am able to be a lot more productive. So that's one of the things that I do. And I noticed that, once I got the diagnosis and talked about, the different treatment options, there's medications, there's therapy. I went for both, because why not, and then when I first started and I told my husband, he kind of made a wrinkly face. Like, he's like, oh, okay, is this really going to work or what? And then he did say, he's like, you know what? You do seem a lot more chill during dinner, because sometimes I'm like stressed out, and, the kids maybe not, be eating enough or well, and, or they're not putting away the dishes. And he said, yeah, you look a lot more chill. And then after that, I went to go do some laundry, and I noticed that while I was folding my laundry, I noticed that in my body, I had such less anxiety that I usually have in doing such a mundane task. Like, I hate folding laundry. And so I noticed that wasn't there as much. And then after that, I went to go like make some edits and post something on Instagram. And while I'm doing my edits, I usually feel like palpitations in my heart, like, oh my gosh, this isn't right. This isn't good. Like, how am I going to put this together? How long is it going to take me to do? And I didn't have those racing thoughts as much, right? I just noticed that. I'm like, oh, this is nice. And so because a lot of that was diminished, I'm able to post more, I'm able to do more, I'm able to get more stuff done, because all of that background anxiety is a little bit faded. I mean, it's still there, right? And I literally just got started on treatment about a month ago, but I do notice the changes, and I'm just so, so grateful. When I was first deciding, should I go for life coaching or should I go to therapy? I started with life coaching. You start by starting. So I started there. And then through that, I learned to borrow the thought that it doesn't have to be and or, it could be and, right? I did the life coaching, and I can do therapy, and I could do, medications, all of the above. We definitely, advocate for any kind of um, self-help behavior, for your own mental wellness, for your physical wellness, emotional wellness, all of the above.
Yeah, everything that you're saying, like I can relate to, minus the cooking. I'm not the best cook, but that's a limiting belief that I'm choosing to hold on to because I'm making my husband cook.
Yeah.
But in seriousness, he calls me out all the time about that. But in seriousness, like because I had no awareness of how my ADHD, like I was kind of oblivious to it, like for 10 years because I got told like you're gonna outgrow it, right? Or like you should know better. Right. And so it was not until like I joined EWP, like all of a sudden I'm telling everybody about it. And it was because life coaching, I didn't even know what life coaching was, but I joined because of the it was going to give me credits. I needed to keep my license, so I knew I had to kill two birds with one stone. And it sounded kind of cool, empowering women physicians. Like I want to be empowered, right? And so yeah, I think that naturally we jump from one thing to another, but it's because we're seeking to try to understand ourselves. Like that's what we're seeking. And we know that there has to be a better way because just like you, I was listening to podcasts on my way home and back. Like I remember listening to podcasts like The Slob Comes Clean or something like that. Like I wanted to really figure out how to adult, like I was like, why can't I just adult? Like people are gonna be like, she's a physician. Why can't she just do her laundry? Why can't she do the dishes, right? Or why does she have to keep doing her laundry like 3 times because she forgot to dry it and now it stinks and now she has to go Google like the vinegar thing or whatever, right? And so, yeah, it's so funny that we don't realize that our brain and our self-care, and I didn't even know what that word was, we are our best investment. Like we can spend all this money on cars and purses and whatever, right? But if we and we can have it all and we can look at it and they look pretty, but we don't feel like just right because we don't feel right. And so again, it's in this therapy, it's in this coaching, it's in this medications, and it's in this discussions like what we're having that we realize, okay, I'm not the only one. And you realize that some of the things that maybe are annoying to you, or you keep swearing you're not going to do it ever again. Like, it's not that you don't want to never do it again, but you don't realize that it's part of like your time blindness and it's part of your, what you thought is like a human, like, I don't know, defect. It's not a human defect. It's just part of your ADHD. And again, I'm not saying that to excuse you, but it's for you to understand it. So then you're like, okay, how can I then, and do I want to do it or can I delegate this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I found that I've also learned how to give myself a lot more grace. I was at Costco and literally like within 5 minutes, I was about to walk off with someone else's cart. And then I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then 5 minutes later, I went to grab an item, put it in my cart. And then the person's like, excuse me, that's my cart. I'm like, oh, that's probably, I know why that's happening now. I know why.
I could have sworn this was just right there. Why you keep doing it?
Now I know why. Now I know why. I have an answer.
Awesome. So, what do you think you see yourself doing in the next like 3 to 5 years for fun?
For fun, I already do a lot of things that are fun. I travel the world. Like my kids, when they were born, everyone said that, we would stop traveling or slow down because both my husband and I have the travel bug. I think his travel bug is more pathologic than mine. However, we proved everyone wrong. And as soon as they were born, my oldest one is almost 10. We've been on a plane almost every month, except for the pandemic. I think by the time he was 7 or 8, he's been to 30 countries because we maximize every single day of vacation that we have per year, to the point where some people have asked if we work. And I'm like, yeah, we work full time, but we use those vacations. They're like little mini retirements because we work so hard. And if we have like a little thing on a weekend here in 1 month and a little thing on a weekend here in that month, We can look forward to those things to help re-energize us, bring us back together. And that's kind of our together time. That's our family time. Both of us work full time. My commute's an hour. So by the time I come home, I have what, 2 3 or less than 3 hours left with my kids before they have to go to bed. And then I don't see them again until the morning when it's circus hour and we got to shoo them off to school. So the time that we spend together in travel is one of our big things that we do. And then, with my exercise, I make sure that I have time to do that. Um, it's one of my must do's. I need to move every single day somehow. And whether it's at work, because I leave a pair of dumbbells there and a pair of jump ropes there, or at home, um, you know, I will make it happen because it's that important to me. And again, cooking is another creative outlet that I have. And so I just find joy in doing all those things. And then because I get to do those things, I get to be a better physician to my patients. I get to share with them what I cook or how I, organize, my day and how I get to get things done, and just get to have a better connection with them because I'm in a place where I get to be more me.
Yeah, and that's so important, right? Like not waiting until someday, but scheduling it on purpose,
Mhm.
not waiting to like, oh, one day I'll make a memory. No, put it in there, make it a memory, right? Like, and that sense of play and adventure, it's refueling for some people. And I would totally be on the plane with you. My kid, when he was born, yeah, same thing. I got told. Yeah, he had done 8 trips by the age of 1. Like, they're like, why would you take a 3-month-old to Puerto Vallarta? I'm like, well, why not? And yeah, they're like, why would you take a 6-week-old to go see the total eclipse? And I'm like, well, why not? So it's just like you say, you play hard, you party hard, right? Or you on purpose decide what is going to be important to you, and which is family is so important. So it's good to live the values that we say we value. Otherwise, like then we don't feel like we're aligned, and that leads to burnout. Really.
Yeah. And that's why, I'm continuing, working on this website, and maybe one day I'll have a course to help other people, get healthy meals on their table without, getting takeout all the time. And, if cooking or cooking demonstrations can eventually be incorporated into my workplace, that would be amazing too. Having these teaching kitchens is something that is exciting for me. And if that's a possibility, I'm totally going that route also.
And it's a possibility, right? Anything with ADHD, like we don't stay in no boxes, right? Like we just invent and like think outside the box. And again, we might not know the how, but it's gonna happen, right? It's just a matter of time. I can't wait for you to send me the picture, like, hey, guess what? And I'll be like, of course. It was just a matter of time, right? It's in the mail. We just don't know what day will get here, but it's in the mail. I know it will be. Okay, awesome. So as you know, people with ADHD sometimes tune out. So if they just started paying attention, like right this second, what would be the takeaway point that you would want them to have?
So if you are curious or wonder if you have ADHD, it's not going to hurt to get evaluated. And if you do have it, great. That is your superpower. And if you don't, great. Now you know what it's not. So let's go find out what else it could be so that you could still continue to be the best you.
Thank you. That is the best advice. Again, be all on you. You know yourself, trust your intuition. Be okay getting a second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever opinion you need, because once you know, then you can establish what the next steps are, right? And meanwhile, keep doing fun things and make sure you put it on the calendar. Out of sight, out of mind. So put it on the calendar. And Danielle, where can they find you on Instagram? Because I'm pretty sure they want to.
Sure. Yeah. You can find me on Instagram at Eat, Roam, Heal. Eat because I love to eat and cook. Roam because I love to travel. And heal because I'm also a physician.
Say it again.
Eat, Roam, Heal.
Awesome. So there you have it. And I'm pretty sure you could send her an instant message through there. If you have a way to set up her show, hey, let us know. If you can facilitate anything or you want her to come speak, let us know, right? So we're all here to uplift each other, and together we are right. So I'm so glad you were here. It's such a pleasure to be able to feature physicians who are living and practicing medicine in their own terms and how fulfilling it can be. Yes, sometimes our road can be rocky and it can show us lots of patients that we don't want to learn, but it teaches resilience and it really teaches us to continue to live in alignment with our values. Absolutely. And you totally embody that. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for being here, and thank you again for giving all of us a voice. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you for spending your time with me. I really believe that time is our most valuable asset. Please subscribe to the podcast, share with your colleagues, and don't forget to check out my website at adhd-lifecoach.com, where you can find out about my upcoming coaching group classes, as well as free master classes and other exciting events that are happening.